To guarantee tack sharp photos the next time you're shooting with your Canon camera, the answer could be in a focus setting that you're not yet using. Because when there are so many settings related to focus, a lot of us just find something that mostly works and then kind of stick with what we know. But if you give me a few minutes, I promise you'll walk away with a few aha moments with some settings that you may not be using right now that could be the key to your next best shot. But before we really get in the weeds, there are 3 crucial autofocus modes that you'll need to remember. The reason that these matter is because they dictate the rules that your camera will follow when it locks onto a subject. There are 3 main focus modes that we have on Canon. They're called one-shot AF, servo AF, and a hybrid option called AI Focus AF that switches between the other 2 automatically. On older DSLRs, the names are slightly different, but the concepts are the exact same. One-shot AF will basically lock focus once each time you half press the shutter or use back button focus depending on how you work. If the subject your camera focused on moves between the time it locked focus and took the photo, your image will appear out of focus. So the solution to that is the second focus mode called servo AF, which still finds focus in the exact same way, except it will continue to track focus beneath your focus point as your subject moves. This is why you should always leave your focus mode to servo, because that way you have way fewer settings to think about and it works for 95% of situations. You could shoot a landscape, your dog running around, and then a photo of whoever you're with, and your camera will easily adjust focus as you or your subjects move, because again, servo is tracking focus constantly under the focus point. One-shot AF, on the other hand, only sets focus when you half press your shutter, so if you didn't set the focus properly, then you're going to be out of luck. Now, there was that AI Focus AF mode that I mentioned earlier, but I honestly have not met anyone who uses that, because how annoying would it be to just get bumped into a focus mode that doesn't work for what you're shooting. But anyways, long story short, servo mode can work for 95% of your photos. One shot cannot, so set your camera to servo and don't let your camera decide for you with that AI mode. Now, once you have a focus mode chosen, you have one piece of the puzzle towards sharper photos. The next piece is your focus method or focus point, whatever you want to call it. And this is where a lot of people start getting lost, because you might have servo AF enabled for a moving subject, but if your AF method is set to the wrong thing, the camera might lock onto the background instead of your subject, and now you're annoyed because you missed the shot. So your camera's order might look different, but going left to right on my Canon EOS R camera, we have face and eye tracking, 1-point autofocus, expanded area autofocus, and area zone AF options. You may also see an additional focus method called point AF, which I'll also talk about here. But to make all of this a bit easier, this all really just boils down into 3 main groups. Looking for a face or a specific subject like animals or cars, depending on your camera and the settings it has. Single points to tell your camera specifically where to focus, regardless of the subject. And zones to give you a general region to focus. First up is subject tracking. This one is a pretty obvious one, basically looking for a defined face or an eye in your frame. Obviously, this is great for portraits, street photography, wildlife, or recording videos of yourself like I'm doing right now. But depending on the camera model you have, you may not see a dedicated face tracking focus method. Instead, you'll have to toggle subject tracking on, then choose which subject type you want your camera to look out for throughout any of those focus modes. Then, regardless of whether you're using point or zone AF, your camera will still look for your defined subject to track within the frame, like the face or eyes. Now, next up, we have the single point AF group, which will look for focus only under that little box you see on screen. There are 4 main kinds of single point focusing that you'll see on Canon cameras, all operating in a slightly different way. And the one that you use will matter depending on what you shoot. Spot AF has the narrowest focus area, and it's great for focusing on something really specific within the frame. If you have this option on your camera, make this your go-to focus method if you don't have a specific reason to use something else. From there, we have 1-point AF, which is the same as spot AF, except it takes a slightly larger area into consideration. If you don't have spot AF, like myself on this EOS R, opt for 1-point AF as your default focus method instead. Finally, we have our expand AF area options, which primarily looks for focus in the center largest box, but if it struggles, it gets help from the surrounding boxes to grab focus. This was once more useful for subjects moving around where they might have moved slightly outside of that single autofocus point, but since there is such good subject tracking in a lot of mirrorless cameras now, these expanded area modes kind of become redundant if you're capturing action. If you're shooting on a Canon DSLR though, these still can be useful for sports photography or action shots. Now finally comes the mode you'll want to use if you're shooting really fast and unpredictable movement. Zone AF lets you choose a horizontal or vertical section of the frame for the camera to find focus within. So like imagine you're shooting a bear walking through the frame, assuming that it was in the general zone of focus, your camera will do its best to lock on and move focus points as your subject passes through that zone. Generally, the horizontal zone will be the most useful, so anything in the foreground doesn't get picked up by the autofocus, especially with like wildlife photography. So things like a bird or like a car racing by or a snowboarder sliding past, these are all situations that zone AF will be your best friend. Now there's some insanely helpful menu settings and some tips you can use in the field to get better results, but before we get there, the key things to consider changing so far before your next shoot are: make sure your camera is set in servo, set your focus method to spot or 1-point AF as your default, and if you're shooting anything wildly fast and unpredictable, opt for one of the zone focus methods instead. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but this will get you ready for most situations, and if you have any issues, well, hopefully this next section will give you some of those solutions. But before we dive into that, every tip and setting mentioned in this video, I've put into a free perfect focus checklist that you can download and use the next time you're out shooting. It'll help you make sure that all of your settings are correct and help you consider what settings to adjust if you're not getting the results that you're wanting. It's totally free in the description or pinned comment down below when you sign up to my email list. If you don't like email lists, that's fine. Unsubscribe at any time, but I still think you'll like the checklist. Anyways, moving on. First up is a setting you'll probably want to turn off to save a lot of battery. It's called Preview AF, or on some models, I think it's called Continuous AF. And when this is on, your camera will constantly be hunting for focus anywhere that you point it, even if you aren't touching the shutter or back button focus. So I'd suggest turning this off so your camera isn't wasting battery power hunting for focus when you're not even using it. Now, something particularly rage-inducing is when your camera is focused on one thing, but then drifts to another and you miss the shot. So in a few situations like wildlife or sports, for example, controlling how your camera reacts to different distractions or erratic movement around your frame can be a huge game changer. These settings and how we control them are called focus cases, and they let you change how sensitive or fast your autofocus reacts to things. Depending on your camera, you may have like 6 of these, or you might just have a few like myself. The only difference is that if you have more of them, you just have more presets basically. Regardless, you'll have tracking sensitivity or tracking acceleration to play with. For tracking sensitivity, you'll want to use a lower setting if you want to make sure your camera stays focused even if your subject moves a little beyond the focus area or if something comes in front of them. An easy scenario I find helps me envision this is like if you're shooting basketball and say like you're focused on player 12, any player moving in front of them or behind them will not distract your camera and it will stay locked onto that original focus plane even if that player moves slightly beyond the point of focus. But on the higher end of tracking sensitivity, your camera will basically jump to anything new that enters the focus area. So in that same basketball example where you're focused on this subject, suddenly when a player passes in front, it's going to lock onto that passing player and then shift back to the original subject. To summarize this, tracking sensitivity will either lock onto your subject's focus plane with a lower sensitivity, or it will jump around as other objects pass under focus area with a higher sensitivity. But some things that we photograph will move very predictably, while others are going to move a lot more erratically, and this is where acceleration comes in. For example, a snowboarder moves pretty predictably, moving in a set path at a relatively consistent speed, so your camera's autofocus is kind of banking on the fact that this subject that we're shooting is going to be moving in a certain direction and will be prepared to focus in that predicted way. On the other extreme, a tiny bird might land on a branch for a moment and then fly left and right and backwards, and then the next position could be anywhere in your frame. So your camera needs to know that anywhere could be the next focus area, and it needs to be prepared to jump around quickly. The snowboarder example, depending on how fast they were going, could be an example where decelerated tracking makes sense because we have consistent, predictable movement for our camera to react to. But with that little bird that's moving all over the place, we have no idea where it's going to go next, so having the accelerated tracking will prepare our camera to focus anywhere. The reason you wouldn't want to have accelerated tracking in all situations is that even if a subject is moving predictably, your camera might suddenly jump to a totally different part of your frame and miss the subject because it has that accelerated tracking. So only increase the tracking acceleration if your subject is moving really unpredictably. Now, if you shoot through your camera's viewfinder a lot, there's another setting that will make moving your focus point feel a lot easier. It's under the touch drag setting, and this lets you use your thumb to move the focus point around the screen while your eye is up to the camera. I set my position to relative and set the touch area to right, so I can use just that right half of the screen to move my focus point anywhere in the frame. It doesn't work with gloves usually, but outside of that, it's definitely something great to enable. Now, a final setting I'd suggest enabling is focus peaking and indicator lines when you're using manual focus. Basically, peaking will just add colored highlights around anything that's in focus, so it's a lot easier to see what's going on. Then the indicator lines just serve as a double assurance that the area under your focus point is in fact in focus. But at this point in the video, we've hardly talked about manual focus at all, so why am I even mentioning it now? Well, as I said before, autofocus can work for most situations, but there are a few exceptions. A few common ones that come to mind are with things like panoramas or HDR images, for example, situations where you're merging multiple photos together. Even though it's subtle, moving your focus point slightly can change the distortion of your photo. So if you were to blend a panorama that has close focus in one shot and then far focus in another, there'd be a small shift in the frame, leaving you with some more ghosting in the final merged photo. Another example could be if you're using a really dark filter like a 10-stop ND and your camera struggles to find focus with whatever settings you're using. Manual focus in that case would then be the move to solve that. Macro photography is also one a lot of people use manual focus in as well, but if you have any other suggestions of when you think people should use manual focus, let me know down in the comments below. Now, as I was making this video, I felt a bit of fear that some of you watching may not have all of these settings that I'm talking about on your camera. So if that's you, I want to remind you that you can still get great, sharp photos even without the latest and greatest tracking. If this isn't you, go to the next section in the timestamps where I'll have some quick fire tips that will really add a bow to this whole discussion for you to improve your focus in the field. But anyways, for those still here, let's take the extreme example and say that your camera has no tracking whatsoever. How can you ever shoot action? Well, fortunately, you don't need a new camera because you can just use one-point autofocus and then be on top of where you place that focus point. For example, if I didn't have subject tracking for this photo, I would know that the skateboarder will be at the same distance from the lens as the top of the bowl. So if I set my focus point here near the coping, even if it's not over the subject, the area I'm focused on is an equal distance from the lens as the subject will be when they come through the frame. So that means that I know that I'll nail focus even though I'm not tracking the subject. The same idea applies to anything that you're shooting. As long as you set your focus point to an object roughly equal distance away from you as your subject will be, then you'll be able to nail focus even without fancy tracking settings. To tie this into a more complicated situation though, say you were trying to photograph a bird that keeps coming to the same bird feeder in your backyard. Rather than trying to like chase that bird around with your focus point, you could just set your focus point right on the bird feeder. Even though the bird may be moving all over, it's still going to be at the same focus plane as the feeder. So you'll still end up catching that bird in focus, assuming you're not using a super wide aperture with a narrow depth of field like f2.8, for example. But now that you have a handle on your autofocus settings, I have 5 quickfire tips that will dramatically increase the percentage of sharp photos that you get from a shoot. 1, remember that your shutter speed can impact your focus even if every other setting is right. Now, obviously, shutter speed doesn't actually change focus, but it does freeze movement, including from your finger just pressing down on the button. It moves your camera just slightly when you do that. So if you're using too slow of a shutter, just the tiny movements of your hand are enough to make your images look blurry, even if the initial focus was correct. A useful rule to avoid this problem is using a minimum shutter speed no slower than 1 over the focal length that you're using. So if you're shooting at 50 millimeters, for example, shooting at 1 over 50 would be your slowest acceptable shutter for handheld. If you're shooting at 400 millimeters, a 1 over 400 shutter will then be your slowest, since these movements become more pronounced as we go up in zoom. This is just a general guideline to help with the blurring problem from incorrect shutter speeds. Now, tip number 2 is when you're shooting something like a landscape where you don't need tracking, always put your focus point on the most important part of the scene. I've made the mistake too many times where I left my focus point somewhere in the midground of the photo, and because of that, using a wide aperture, things in the distance just look slightly soft when I looked at it in full screen. So always make sure that your focus point is set to the one key piece of your photo, so you guarantee that the important parts are in focus no matter what. Tip number 3 is to constantly reacquire focus as you're shooting by half pressing the shutter or tapping your back button focus. Forcing your camera to constantly reset, even if you're in servo mode, can help make sure that everything's locked and loaded for when you're actually ready to take the photo. This is especially important when you're taking wildlife photos or something that is kind of fast moving and is not going to happen again. Tip number 4 is to get in the habit of checking your image focus on your camera while you're shooting. This will save you so much frustration when you get home and realize that you might have missed an important shot that looked in focus when you were just looking on this tiny camera screen. So just quickly hit your playback button, zoom in, and then take a look to see if the key parts of your images are sharp. It's going to save you a lot of headaches and frustration when you go and import your images. Now, finally, tip number 5 is to consider stopping down your lens for more forgiveness with your autofocus. Because if you're shooting at, say, f2.8, only a tiny area of your photo can be in focus at once, since you're using a very shallow depth of field. But if you were to stop down your lens to, say, f5.6, f8, or f11, we get a progressively larger depth of field, meaning more can be in focus at once. So if we think of this like a bullseye on a target, the larger your aperture number, the wider that bullseye in the middle becomes, so it's a lot easier to hit perfect focus every time. There's no optimal aperture to use for every photo, so I just mentioned this more as like food for thought if you're having a hard time getting focus. A larger depth of field can definitely help in some situations. Now, I know that all of this is a lot to remember, so I made a free perfect focus checklist to download to your phone and use the next time you're out shooting. You can grab a copy of it for free in the description or pinned comment down below. If there's anything you feel like I missed here that others would find useful for their Canon autofocus, please let me know down in the comments below so we can make this a larger discussion and have more angles and perspectives. But anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.